For more on China's economy, we welcome back Einar Tangen, Senior Fellow at the Taihe Institute, as well as Chairman of the Asia Narratives. Always good to see you, sir. Look, we all know that China took a hit because of the COVID restrictions last year. So I don't want to dwell on the past. What I want to focus on is, what does this tell us about the next 6 to 12 months, which is not just, I'm sure you care about, but all these investors around the world who are looking and waiting for this recovery are expecting now in China?
Well, Phil, I mean, it's a story of the glass half empty or half full. And quite frankly, from the Chinese side, they see it as half empty, that it's gaining momentum. There was a surprise upside on the fourth quarter, some of the numbers. And, COVID is now not completely behind, but mostly. I mean, you have to remember that it's the urban areas that have been hit hard. I mean, 70, 80, 90% of people have had COVID. That represents almost 2/3 of the population. So at this juncture, they see it as very rosy going forward. Those who are looking at the past, trying to project based on pre-COVID conditions, are obviously coming to different conclusions. And there's a lot of pessimism there. But, still, 3%. Very much better than almost any other developed country. Literally could be double what the U.S.
Right, and I think you mean the glass half full, right, from the Chinese perspective. And I think the rest.
Yeah, sorry.
Look, the whole world wants China to do better, because if China does better, things are better in China. They're spending more money. They're big buyers of stuff around the world. Plus, the supply chain issues all loosen up as well. So it's in everybody's interest that things aren't bad. Unfortunately, there's always pessimism, no matter where you go. We have pessimism in the U.S. We have pessimism in Davos, and probably somewhere in China there's some pessimism too. But ultimately, the data shows that things, number one, are not that bad, and number two, what we're hearing, at least from people on the ground, is that people are going out shopping. Consumer spending is starting to drive up. You're going to see travel. I think these next couple of weeks are going to be huge. Everybody I know wants to go somewhere, probably including yourself. So all this is going to mean the next couple of months, these numbers are going to be off the charts. How could they not?
Well, Phil, to give you an example, yesterday evening, there were no restaurant seats available in Beijing. It was fully booked up, people doing holiday parties, etc., and you could not get a car. The traffic was just monumentally tough. Part of the reason it was hard to find somebody to drive your car home, what they call a daijia, they call it a drunk driver, was because some people had gone home. But really, you do see a tremendous amount of pickup. There's a lot more optimism out there. A lot of the questions that people had, especially about the real estate sector, have been answered. And going forward, how China wants to address its next set of issues, which is how to open up quickly but steadily.
Let me ask you this. What do you think Beijing, or in lack of a better word, the Chinese government, what additional stimulus activities or plans do they have in the coming weeks and months that you think they either should do or likely will do?
All right. I mean, the lifeblood of China is its small, medium-sized enterprises. You heard the report earlier about the state-owned enterprises, these large entities, but really what China needs is to regrow that bottom layer of, market-oriented groups. They provide 90% of new jobs, 80% of existing jobs, over 60% of the GDP, and like every other country out there. So what the government is doing is trying how to get money to these people. And I don't mean giveaway money, not helicopter money, but if people have an idea for a business entity, how do you get it to them? They've also just absolutely taken down all the taxes, a lot of the red tape, everything. If you want to start a business, if you want to, have employees, you're not going to pay any taxes, especially up to a certain threshold this year. So they're really pushing the entrepreneurial side. And, that's all going to depend on the spending. We've always talked about this dual circulation strategy. It's all based on consumption. And that consumption is really what drives these small, medium-sized entities.
Right.
And they're hoping to do that again. And as I said, the other shoe to drop on that is if China domestically is doing well. The world, as you put it, is going to do well. 2/3 of global growth is probably going to be due to China, and that's even from the pessimists. And you know, it's a thing where everybody does well if China does well,
Right.
And hopefully that will be the case.
Well, look, one thing we all know is when things open up and everybody gets happy and excited, there's going to be the talk of inflation, but let's leave that alone for now. Let me talk about the other really big issue that you and I have talked about briefly, I think, and that's the issue of the United States chip manufacturing and China. We all know the U.S. is stifling some of the chip exports specifically to China, and they're calling out China, and we all know China is certainly not happy. You can say tit for tat, you can say it's a tech war, you can say it's a trade war. It doesn't matter what we call it. The point is that both sides have to figure out a way to move forward, because ultimately China still makes a ton of chips for the U.S. They may not be able to buy the most advanced chips, and I don't even know the intricacies of this, but what are you hearing, at least on the ground, to what a compromise could or might look like?
Well, right now there was a slight, you know, the door was left ajar in terms of these chip manufacturers from the U.S. can, in fact, apply to the Department of Commerce to ship chips to China. The question is, it's probably not going to be the high-end ones, but you know, the fact is, the vast number of everything, we're talking about 99% of everything that is out there, doesn't use the most advanced chips. So I think there's some hope there. The issue is economics, though. At the end of the day, people in all of these countries, whether it's Europe, the United States, China, they want development and prosperity. We've gone through 3 years of difficult times. They don't want to hear about how things can be divided. They want to hear about how the pie can be grown. And I think this is very important. This is what Qin Gang was, the new foreign minister, was talking about in his interview. He was talking about how he liked the American people, how they were amazing, you know, these things. This is really important. People have to realize that, you know, put aside all the acrimony between governments and ideologies and things like that. People are the same everywhere, and they need to realize that and start thinking about, hey, how do we make prosperity out of this? I mean, imagine you're in Europe right now facing a massive recession. Do you really want to hear about more issues that can drive down, get rid of more jobs? No, I don't think so. Well, I think people are ready for a change.